Hello everybody, welcome to Awesome Rusty Bucket. Subscribe to the channel if you have not already and drop a like on this video. I'm trying to hit 100k subscribers and we're very nearly at that goal, so your subscription would be much appreciated. Also, the main series I'm going to be talking about in this video is Knicks versus Cavs, and I did a preview video for that over on my main channel. Video has not done particularly good, so if you could do me a favor and go check that out, I think it's one of the best and frankly the most in-depth preview of a series that I have ever done. Rudy did a fantastic job on the edit, so if you could do me a favor and go watch that if you haven't, it would be much appreciated. But begging aside, I want to talk about the first 3 games of the playoffs. There's going to be a separate one for the Warriors-Kings game because frankly I didn't feel like I would normally split it into 2 games for each video, but I really didn't feel like Sixers-Nets or Celtics-Hawks was really going to be worthy of an individual video, even if it's both games combined, because really all I had to say about both of those games is they went exactly as you'd pretty much expect. In the case of the Nets versus Sixers game, I only managed to watch the second half of it, but it was pretty much exactly what you would expect. Mikal Bridges was awesome, and the Nets offense wasn't terrible. That part of it I didn't think they would have much issues with, but the Sixers offense and the dominance of Embiid, James Harden really shined through, and they just continued to, be a contender versus a team that would be in the lottery if not for the other team being there, getting them in that position to begin with. In the case of the Celtics versus Hawks game, the Celtics looked pretty dominant throughout the majority of it. They got up to a 30-point lead at halftime. The only real standouts for the Hawks at that point was Jalen Johnson, who I really liked the play of, but Trae Young and DeJounte Murray were not having great performances, and they didn't end up having great performances in the game as a whole. It was really more of a team effort from the Hawks, but they managed to close the gap a little bit. They got it to be a 12-point deficit in the fourth quarter, but pretty much as soon as they got it down to that, the Celtics immediately swung back and were almost like they were awoken again. Frankly, it didn't appear to me as though the Celtics took them very seriously, and then they just played down to their competition a little bit too early in the game to allow a run like that to happen. But when it came time to shut it down, officially, they had no issue shutting it down, and I don't think this is going to be much of a series at all. Granted, you could look at this and say, hey, if they managed to be really good in this game without a good game from Trae and DeJounte, if you get a game from one or even both of them, maybe they take a game or two. Sure, if you want to be really generous, but I feel like I've seen what we've seen from the Hawks lately. It feels like either one of those two happen. Either there is a lot of stuff from the team, or Trae and DeJounte have good games but really don't get anyone else involved. It's a mixed bag, and I don't know that you're really going to get both of those stars to align at least enough to win against a team that is just clearly so much better than them. But jumping over to the Cavs versus Knicks game, this is the most anticipated series of the first round in the Eastern Conference by far, really just because the rest of the matchups, as I previously went over, are not particularly interesting. In this game, what I wanted to look out for, of course, was how Julius Randle would play, and he did not play great. If there's one thing Julius is going to do, it's to score around 20 points. He's always going to do that. It just depends on how many shots it takes him to get him there. He doesn't really seem to mind, and 19 points on 20 shots for a 35% field goal percentage, not exactly ideal here. As I kind of anticipated, Mitchell Robinson and Isaiah Hartenstein ended up kind of splitting the minutes at the center position because I just don't know that Mitchell is really well equipped to deal with what Evan Mobley and Jared Allen are doing. Now, by no means do I believe that Isaiah Hartenstein is also equipped for it, but I know I just think he's 5% more equipped for the job. Frankly, it's not ideal one way or the other. But where the Knicks really stood out in this game in a way that made up for the fact that their interior presence was a little bit lacking is their point of attack defense was just phenomenal. They kind of made Darius Garland a non-factor. He finished with 17 points on decent efficiency, but it really felt like he was only ever taking open shots and not really creating much himself, and I believe he didn't even score at all in the second half of the game or something close to that, or didn't score in the fourth quarter. Definitely at least a long stretch without him getting a bucket, because I could not remember the last time he scored in that game. But Emmanuel Quickley, Quentin Grimes, and obviously the standout performance for the Knicks, Josh Hart, all fantastic. Josh Hart finished with 17 points, 10 rebounds, 5 of them being offensive rebounds. and he finished 8 for 11 from the field. Really good stand-up performance. I'd definitely say he performed the best. Next best up for the Knicks would be Jalen Brunson, who had himself 24 points, not on the greatest efficiency, albeit, but he hit big shots in the moments where they needed him to, including a big mid-range shot late in the fourth quarter. As the Cavaliers did make a push, the Knicks were between, like, 4 to 10 points ahead of the Cavs for a large chunk of this game, and the Cavs managed to take the lead with like less than 2 minutes left in the game, but from there I don't believe they scored again, and the Knicks hit a few big shots and ultimately walked away with the win. In the very end of the game, there was like 32 seconds on the clock. It was debatable whether or not you should foul under those circumstances, especially given that Cleveland did not have a timeout, if I'm not mistaken. If I am mistaken, it's because the graphic was wrong. But given that, what was I saying? Right. Okay. Yes. So they ended up not doing that, but unfortunately, after the missed shot, they gave up an offensive rebound to Julius Randle. And frankly, offensive rebounding was probably the thing that killed the Cavs the most in this game. And that's not exactly ideal in the way that you would expect it to be, given that they have a far better, from a talent perspective, interior defense and rebounding. Obviously, Josh Hart as a guard or forward, whatever you want to label him as, being as ridiculous of a rebounder as he is, one way or the other, he's 6'5", whatever position you call him. That definitely helped quite a bit, but like they finished this game with 34 rebounds to the Knicks 27, and of those 34, half of them were offensive rebounds. So a big rebounding disadvantage there and multiple second chance points. The Knicks finished with 88 field goal attempts while the Cavaliers got 83. And with the score being as close as it was, really, I would say that was the deciding factor. Julius Randle struggled offensively with his shots. While he was pretty good in the first quarter, it kind of came down to him being pretty not great for the rest of it. He also finished with 5 turnovers. Even with him struggling, the reason why I liked this Knicks team so much more than last year's Knicks, or not last year's Knicks team, the team in 2021 that made the playoffs, was the Jalen Brunson factor. The fact that you have him, and of course, the Cavs guard defense is not particularly special. Even getting a 7 for 20 performance from Julius Randle and a 2 for 12 performance for RJ Barrett. Even with that, having Jalen Brunson there to carry, you had what you needed to get there. And I do think that the main standout on top of the offensive rebounding and Jalen Brunson's performance has to be that point of attack defense, as I previously mentioned. Donovan Mitchell, of course, had himself a pretty game, but even though he finished himself with 38 points, 14 for 30 shooting, 6 for 16 from 3, like that still comes out to 47-37 splits, but it's not as though he was just, getting easy buckets. He worked for every one of those points and then some. And they also managed to prevent him from getting to the free throw line a ton, because he only shot 6 free throws in spite of how relentlessly aggressive he was. I will say for the Cavs, I'm quite disappointed in the performance of Allen and Mobley, especially Evan Mobley, as he finishes 4 for 13 here. He came out of the gates with like a thunderous dunk and a really nice behind the back pass to Jared Allen for a dunk, but felt like he just didn't exist for the rest of the game after that, at least on the offensive end of the floor. He made his defensive presence felt a couple of times on Julius, but also Julius defends himself half of the time. So yeah, this game, I do think the Cavs would have had it if just not for the attack defense being that damn good. That was probably the main issue, and something that the Cavs are going to have to adjust to. Darius Garland cannot afford to shrink with that attention being put his way to the extent that he has. And as I mentioned in that preview video, Jared Allen and Evan Mobley have to be a bigger factor offensively. They combined for 22 points here, and I just don't think that's going to get it done, especially if you have Garland not really doing his best here. I'm not trying to rag on Garland too much, but he didn't have his best game here for sure. It's his first playoff game ever. He's allowed to have that issue with a great defense bothering him, but hopefully you get more from him in the future. But yeah, that's my thoughts on these games. Tune in soon for Warriors versus Kings. And again, if you can check out that Knicks video, the Knicks Cavs preview video, I'd really appreciate it. Even after this game, kind of everything I said applied and made sense. Even though the Knicks did win and I predicted the Cavs to win, there's still stuff in there that's very useful. I appreciate if you check that out, but that is it. Goodbye.